Hey you guys, welcome to Alex and Andy live from Shanghai, China. It is Friday, the 13th of May in 2022. Spooky day, obviously, if that's what you believe in, Friday the 13th. I'm pretty sure if we weren't under lockdown right now, people would be outside having fun. Firstly, a quick look at what's coming up on today's show. Obviously, we have all the latest numbers. Not looking too hot there with the numbers, 227 new symptomatic cases, 1,869 new asymptomatic cases with 4 infections in the community. This represents a rise day on day of 45%, the first time in about 2 weeks. But it's not all bad news. We do have some signs from the government that the city is preparing to open up. Around mid-May, the government is saying, after achieving zero COVID-19 community transmission with limited movement and effective control and classified management. Now, it sounds a bit confusing, but we'll chat with Yang Jian about that very shortly. Also, we've finally had some clarity from Shanghai officials who have finally officially announced the meaning of some key pandemic terms, including zero community transmission. Better late than never, I think. We'll also find out about a 15-minute PCR network that will exist in the city. The local government has arranged for more than 9,900 PCR testing sites across Shanghai, which will enable residents here to take a PCR test within a 15-minute walk from their homes or from their workplaces. Sounds like a bit of an insight into things to come. In non-COVID news, astronomers revealed the first image of the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy yesterday, which is pretty exciting. We'll take a look very shortly. Also, in today's show, we have a new episode of Mental in Lockdown from Emma Leaning. Today, she's going to talk about coping with relationships under lockdown. We'll also take a quick look at a trailer for an upcoming interview from our colleague Jack, who's gone and interviewed some truck drivers who are stuck in limbo. That is what's coming up on today's show. Let's chat with my co-host Alex. Alex, how's your day been?
Okay, not bad. Just another day. We do see the cases are up. I'm not super about that, and the reason why is because I think that I suspect that a lot of this up and down fluctuation of daily numbers is just it's a product of when the cases are reported, not necessarily an actual trend. And so, in as much as I don't get too optimistic about any downturn, I also don't get too pessimistic about a small upturn like this. I don't think that it means that we're going to be rocketing back up to 5 digits anytime soon. So, yeah, I think the up and down nature of it is just a product of the way that it's being reported, not necessarily, but I mean, like when the cases are said to have occurred, when they are, things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's definitely some confusion as to when cases will show up. We've had people obviously in certain districts are not showing up on stats, even though they're tested positive on X day and so on and so forth. So I think, definitely it's open to interpretation what these numbers mean. We'll chat with Yang Jian very, very shortly about what this means as well. But there's the numbers. Obviously, I mentioned just before there's 4 new cases found in the community. Now, apparently, this isn't a bad thing. It's not too bad considering the number of cases found outside quarantine and lockdown areas is so low. And I think that's why the government is signaling that we may be able to start opening up again soon.
Yep, true. Yep, definitely. We'll see how that goes. I'm not, we can talk about that story in a little bit. It's cool that you mentioned the black hole thing. It's called Sagittarius A star, which is the name of the black hole at the center of the Milky Way. I'm kind of into this stuff. And so, it's tens of thousands of light years from here. So it isn't something that we're going to have to worry about. But pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, it's a supermassive black hole at the center of many galaxies. And that's the one that we've got in ours. And it's pretty cool and remarkable to think about the idea of taking a picture of a black hole or somehow getting a rendered image of it, because it seems like that would be something that would be possible to do. Not long ago, we didn't even know if they existed. So astronomers and scientists were unsure if black holes were even a thing or if it was just something theorized that didn't actually exist. And now we're taking photos of them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely very, very meaningful here. We're looking at a image, like you said, of Sagittarius A star, which is the black hole at the center of the Milky Way, which is, of course, our neighborhood. So, this is, like you said, 27,000 light years away from Earth and 4 million times more massive than the sun. But those numbers, Alex, I don't know about you, but those numbers, they're so huge. They're really just beyond my comprehension at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's a light year is trillions and trillions of kilometers and everything like that, and it's just obviously space is big.
Space is huge.
Yeah.
Anyway, it kind of makes you feel like if you're feeling down, you could look at this and say how insignificant we are and how this problem we're under right now shouldn't matter much, but unfortunately, it still does. So I mean, it's a little solace, but not much. Anyway. Hey, let's bring in our colleague Yang Jian, who we can chat with about these new numbers. Let me find him. There we go. Hey, Yang Jian, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, clear.
Hey, so just before I mentioned what I see as kind of bad news, we had about a 45% increase in cases day on day. But I wanted to ask you, since you follow the official, the official news very closely, what does this mean for the city's overall trend towards zero?
According to the breakdown of this number, we can find over a quarter of the new infections were detected in Yangpu district, and the number in Yangpu has been tripled to over 500 to the previous day. And according to the addresses of the positive cases, we can see most of the infections in Yangpu were found in the older residential communities, and including many of the city's earliest workers' community built over half a century ago for the growing number of working class. So some of the older neighborhoods have issues like poor living conditions and hygiene problems. So the executive vice mayor said today that the risk of another surge primarily exists in these older residential communities and also urban villages. And another reason is Yangpu district has launched a new round of massive PCR testing from yesterday afternoon, and especially across the locked down areas, which screened out additional infections. And just now, the district government said 3-day PCR testing will run through Sunday, and everyone in Yangpu must stay at home apart from taking the PCR testing, and including those within the precautionary and the controlled areas. And but the resurgence in Yangpu remains under control because no infection was found at the community level. And apart from Yangpu, most other cases were found in Pudong, Huangpu, and Jing'an, while the pandemic situation remains stable and the daily infection number keeps at a low level in most other districts, that especially those basically achieved a zero community transmission. So the rebound in Yangpu won't affect the general positive trend of the city's pandemic situation, but the forecast of the city's COVID prevention in the next step might be shifted across the Huangpu River from Pudong to Yangpu. And besides, the Health Commission official also said today, people are suggested to use formal e-commerce platforms and online stores and avoid buying products from informal sources, which could also be the potential risk of virus transmission. Andy.
All right. Good information there on the uptick that we did see today, albeit not a big uptick. But I wanted to ask you another question. And we've got a story, and we've been talking about this. It says the vice mayor gave a schedule for zero community transmission and potential sort of soft opening up of the city. Do you have any details for us on that plan and what that would look like?
Yes, he announced the city aims to achieve the zero community transmission in mid this month, and which will be followed by a gradual and orderly open up. And he said the light is getting closer and closer, and Shanghai is now at the key stage of transforming from the current emergency response to the normality. And he said, despite some minor fluctuations like what we see today, the pandemic control situation is stabilizing and tending to the good direction, because he said 99% of the new infections were found among those under lockdown or quarantine recently. So the government is making a general plan to gradually return to normal life and production, along with the, of course, normal pandemic prevention measures. And at first, he said the three area classifications, the locked down, controlled, and precautionary, will be gradually restored to the former high, medium, and the low risk areas designations. And now the period for a lockdown area to become precautionary has been shortened to 10 days rather than 2 weeks, so that more residents can work out from their communities. And secondly, the vice mayor said transportation will be gradually restored. Of course, if we achieve this zero community transmission goal, and along with other businesses, he named a few like supermarkets, malls, convenience stores, hair salons, and laundry services. And thirdly, he said local schools will also gradually reopen, and the senior students will be firstly allowed to study at school, and mainly for them to prepare for the coming college and high school entrance exams, which has been postponed to early July. And he said more hospitals and medical institutes will reopen, and some now urgent surgeries can be conducted, and the government service windows will also reopen with extended hours. But as I mentioned, he also noted the risk of another surge still mainly exists in the old residential communities and urban villages. So it requires ongoing prevention and control measures. And he said there are two main measures. The first is to arrange the 9,900 PCR testing sites across the city and allowing residents to receive a PCR test within 15 minutes walk from their homes or workplace. And half of them have already opened, mainly for the employees returning to work and citizens in the precautionary areas. And secondly, the Health Commission officials said the city will further push the vaccination, especially for the elderly. And he said about 140 clinics have reopened vaccination services in 11 districts and covering most precautionary areas. So after over a month of lockdown and control, maybe the city will finally see the hope to embrace its victory over the coronavirus. That the vice mayor said is the common enemy to every citizen. And but now we will still have to keep following the stipulations of the three areas and receiving the PCR and the antigen screening to make sure, like he said, the light will come soon. Alex.
Yeah, definitely. We can all agree that COVID is the common enemy at the moment. Yang Jian, thank you so much for your update. We will catch you again same time tomorrow. Cheers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, a lot of information there. I was going to ask Yang Jian to tell us about the terms that have been clarified by the central government, but I think it's probably easier if we try to explain them with text on screen. So I don't know if you want to mention, talk about anything Yang Jian just mentioned, or should we go straight to those?
Well, I just check my notes here. No, I was just saying about what the vice mayor was talking about. You know, it's good to hear optimism about the situation.
Yeah.
I think it's a good sign. You know, obviously, you know, if what's coming out of his office is more cautionary, then I think that portends maybe a negative future. If it's more optimistic, then that's obviously what we want. You know, but I hear a lot of analogies about light at the end of the tunnel and things like that, and that's good. But there's
Common enemy.
I'm personally waiting until there are concrete plans and dates and things to open up the city because, you know, light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, sure. I just want, you know, that doesn't really fill me up with you know, doesn't get me ready to. I don't know what that really means. So is what I'm trying to say. And so while it's good to have positivity going on, and I think, like I said, that's a good sign than the opposite. I'm not really sure what exactly it means. And so again, as I've sort of my personal strategy throughout this is until there are concrete sort of numbers and plans and dates, I'm just not going to get my hopes up too much for a specific date. But we'll see. You know, mid-May. Okay, we'll see. All right, I'm waiting for it.
It's already mid-May though. This is my problem. Anyway, let's check out this article here that is on shine.cn, our official website for Shanghai Daily, which is all about what the vice mayor was saying about gradually reopening. basically, yeah, he's saying the city aims to open up by mid-May after achieving zero COVID-19 community transmissions with limited movement and effective control and classified management. Like you said, doesn't seem like there's any solid plans here. It seems like a bunch of words mashed together, if I'm being completely honest. And here, this is another thing I have a problem with. It says, as the city's resurgence continues trending in a positive direction, the 3 emergency area classifications, locked down, controlled, and precautionary, will be downgraded to high, medium, and low risk. For me, that just sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but I guess we'll find out what it means in a practical sense, if there's any difference or if it's the same thing or what the changes are. We will try and report that to you, but I think it's going to be something that we're all going to have to sort of see in practice, and it's in order to understand what that actually means. Because without any specifics about what that actually pretends in terms of policy, I don't really know what does mean. So. Yeah, that's pretty much where that is. Like you said, today's May 13th, Friday the 13th today. As you mentioned at the start of the show, but May the 13th. So I'm not sure what mid-May means, but I would argue that it's pretty much mid-May already. And so we'll see. We'll see. I don't know what exactly this means. I can't interpret it any better than anybody else, honestly. So I'm just going to leave the words there, and we'll figure out what it means as we wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see when we are allowed to head out and head back to our normal lives. I guess that's when we'll realize the city has returned to some form of normalcy. But what we can see,
go ahead, Andy.
In solid terms here is the 15-minute PCR circle. Yeah. This features solid information. There's about 10,000 PCR COVID testing sites set up around the city, which means after the lockdown is over and we're kind of back to normal life, when we're going outside, heading to work, going shopping, seeing friends, we will probably be required to have regular PCR tests to get in anywhere, malls, movie cinemas, cultural sites. So what that's going to mean is we'll be able to get to a site within 15 minutes walking distance from our homes or workplaces. So that's good to know. Probably what will happen, especially in terms of our situation, Alex, is I imagine we'll just do these tests like we did just before the lockdown at work, which I think is probably the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, I know at our office we were doing them every, I think, 48 hours or so. Yeah, that's true. I guess this is just sort of what we're going to be dealing with in the near future. I'm not sure for how long this is going to be necessary to continue with, 9,900. So basically a PCR testing stations just blanketed all over the city. It does make it more convenient to get a test if tests are required to go to certain types of locations. Okay. I mean, it sounds good. As if I think it's important that if we, that if we are going to have PCR tests within 48, 72 hours or whatever the case may be, it's really important that they make it as convenient as possible, right?
That's the whole idea.
There's a high bar to clear in terms of what proof or what documentation people have to show to go somewhere, then I think it's important that it be made as convenient and easy as possible, so that we're all not running around all over the place like chickens with their head cut off trying to figure out what the heck we're supposed to be doing. So if that's the case, good that it's going to be convenient. I'm curious to see how long it will need to remain that way, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, definitely time will tell. I think hopefully, Alex, you just mentioned hopefully it's as easy as possible. I'm crossing my fingers that we can use that 30-day code we've been using to do PCR tests at the moment. If we can just flash that 30-day code and it's valid for 30 days, then I think people will be pretty happy, pretty willing to obviously go along and do this. And obviously, as someone mentioned before on Twitter, if we are required to do PCR tests every 48 hours to go anywhere, it's important to remember that isn't mandatory. You can opt out. It just means you can't go anywhere or do anything. So, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yep. And also, I'm really curious to see what sort of establishments will be open. I've been sort of lamenting, without going too overboard, but lamenting what I anticipate to be a very limited, short list of places that when the city does open, I imagine that the list of the types of places that will actually open is going to be quite short. So in my mind, that's not really open. But it's better than where we are at right now. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Claire Folvey on Facebook, I think she's from New Zealand, says I'm also not that confident that things will open up soon. Yeah, I think people are wary after, I think today we're day 43 of the citywide lockdown. We've had a lot of ups and downs. People are wary, I think, and rightly so, about any of this so-called good news. I think people are like you said on many a stream, Alex, they don't want to get their hopes up too high in case they're ultimately let down. We've found it is quite a fluid situation with cases. Obviously, we just saw cases rose 45%. So obviously nothing's set in stone, which is why people are not that confident.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's important to stay positive and optimistic, but obviously I don't mean to, how should I say this? I don't mean to
put a damper on it.
Well, I don't mean to sort of scratch to rip the scab off an old wound, but this lockdown was supposed to only last for 4 days. So, and here we are on day 43. And so I'm not being critical. I mean, obviously there's a reason that it's lasted this long, and it's because of the number of COVID cases. But at the same time, I think it has led a lot of people to sort of say, okay, well, that sounds great, but we'll see. Right. Yeah,
I think it's a good idea for our own mental well-being, I guess. But let's move along really quickly to a new thing we want to discuss, which is some clarification on terms that we received from the central government, Shanghai's central government. When I say central, I mean the main, not district government. Basically, we had some clarification on these terms here. So let's just quickly go over them. Community level, let me see. I can bring it up with more detail here in case you can't read it. There we go. Community level, that means within controlled and precautionary areas, in addition to those outside of closed loop management. Lockdown zones and quarantine sites are excluded. So that's what it means when we say cases have been found in the community level, I guess. They're not found in controlled or precautionary areas. No, they are.
Right. At community level means that they're found outside of 3 places. It means they're outside of any quarantine, makeshift hospital facilities that house positive testing people, obviously. It means that they're also outside of quarantine hotels that are usually occupied by people that are testing negative but have been deemed to be close contacts. And then also out of down communities where there have been recent positive cases and the residents are not allowed to go downstairs or outside. So those 3 types of communities are excluded. And if a quote unquote community level case is found, it means it was a case that was found outside of the 3 different categories of places.
Yeah, but it goes back to what I was saying to you just before we went on air, Alex. I just wish, in terms of communication, that they would make things a lot easier to understand. For example, you could just say red, orange, green.
Yep.
And then it would be a lot easier to understand, because really, when I look at this, like I said to you before, precautionary areas, controlled areas, lockdown areas, it all sounds the same to me in English. So I think, in this kind of situation, we should be making the language the most easy to understand for the average person. So I really think this is still, even though they've clarified it, it's still not that clear, to be completely honest, in my opinion.
I agree. I think a lot of these terms, what were they? Precautionary, and what was the other? Controlled. Like, I'm not sure what the difference is there, but I guess, I mean, just in a linguistic sense. But I mean, in terms of what it means in this situation, at least we do have some understanding of what it means. I see right here it says zero community transmission means 3 consecutive days without a positive case at the community level, which is what we just explained. In these areas, controlled basically in the green and the orange areas. It excludes, you know what? I'm going to do that. It excludes the red areas, okay? And includes the green and the orange areas. All right. You know what? It's way better. And so, so here it means that 3 consecutive days without any positives in green and orange areas in a specific sub-district, I think is what we would talk about as zero community transmission.
Yes, and I think actually I've just kind of figured it out, I reckon, in my head. In the West, in New Zealand and in the States, in Anglo countries, our government really aims to use what's called plain English, which is simplifying the language to the easiest, most understandable by everybody or the most people possible. But I think in China, with official terms, they're still using quite official terms, so it's not that easy to understand. So I think maybe China hasn't switched to maybe what we could call plain Chinese, where we like to use plain English. I think even with the government, excluding the legal sector, I think the legal sector in New Zealand, probably in the States as well, they still like to use quite difficult language.
Of course.
Okay, let's move on. Basic. Do you want to do this one, Alex? Basic zero community transmission.
Basic zero community transmission means at the community level, less than one positive case is detected for about per 100,000 residents for 3 consecutive days. Okay, so this means not absolute zero, but basically zero. Okay, so
basically zero.
1 per 100,000. There's okay.
Well, that makes a bit more sense, and you can just do the math. Less than one person per 100,000, so 1 million is less than 10 people. 26 million less.
26 in the city then.
Yeah, these numbers are a lot easier to understand. For example, if we're back in New Zealand, where, say, Wellington City has 300,000, so you would say, okay, less than 3 people. But yeah, the last one is dynamic zero community transmission. Every new case will be identified and confined in time to break the chain of transmission at the community level. So I guess that's what we're now aiming for. Instead of absolutely zero, we're just aiming to be able to identify and control those cases as soon as possible to break transmission. So I think that one makes a bit of sense. What do you reckon?
It does. I do remember, and I think a lot of this might be about this. This is speculation, but I do remember when the outbreaks were happening in the U.S. and in other countries, they talked about flattening the curve, right?
Right.
Which is
that was quite a while.
If anybody remembers, this is back in 2020, and during the initial surge. And if anybody remembers what that means, it just means making it such that if people are going to end up contracting COVID, that it's spread out. It's not the entire community at once, because if it's the entire community at once, then there's just not enough hospital space and facilities to treat and attend to the people that really do actually have severe symptoms from it. And so I think, I think that this might be related in some way to that sort of concept.
Yeah, cool, Bobby. Hey, let's check out a comment real quickly. This comes from Uber. Law Lun says, first time to see you live. Very happy to have found you and obtain a realistic view of what's happening in Shanghai. I'm down in the southwest coast, Beihai, where all is well at the moment. Awesome. Thank you for tuning in. It's definitely what we're aiming for. I'll remove the comment because I'm covering your face, Alex. We're definitely aiming to provide, a very realistic view without the drama of what's happening here in Shanghai. So I'm glad you've seen that. I'm sure you are too, Alex.
Good. Good luck down there in Beihai. We hope that you don't have to go through a lockdown like this, and that everyone down there is healthy. We're just trying to. I agree with you. I think our goal here is to sort of report what's happening and try not to sensationalize it in either direction. And a little bit of, it's not an opinion show, but Andy and I do give a little bit of our sort of personal takes or what's happening in our personal lives. Just, obviously everyone's story is different, but we're trying to just not sensationalize it in an overly positive or overly negative light, and just kind of just put the news out there, say what's going on in the city. Obviously, a lot of my friends back home are really concerned, like, oh my gosh, like I can't, like everything that's happening over there's crazy. I'm just like, oh, settle down a little bit. It's not quite what you see with Fox News or whatever. So,
Right. That is definitely what we're aiming for. And I think it is important that you mentioned we do often put in our own points of view, but it is definitely just our points of view. Two people. Obviously, we work for Shanghai Daily, but we do put forward our personal opinions as people going through the lockdown. Speaking of our personal lives, I do want to share a video of this mushroom soup I made today. Alex, I got some, I sent you this video before. I got about 5 kinds of mushroom given to us today from the government, which was really awesome. So I made this mushroom soup, and I want to thank our colleague Minty who helped me out a bit with the recipe, as well as Stephen and Picton. I didn't know before I had to thicken up soup. So this is using flour, which I first mixed into a paste with milk and slowly added, if you wanted to know. A lot of people have said that adding flour to soup is difficult because it curdles or suddenly cooks up, but you just got to add it really slowly and kind of whisk it in there, in case you're wanting to know. But yeah, that's my mushroom soup I made today. By the way, that's not pepper on top, that is chia seeds. I don't have cracked pepper. I did want to add something just to add a bit of color. So yeah.
Yeah, looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Well done. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm trying to use this opportunity to learn how to make a few different things that I normally don't do. So yeah, definitely looks pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's tasty. I still have some left. I was going to say I'll send you some over, but that's not going to happen, so I won't. Yeah, here's some more comments from people. Okay, somebody's swearing on there, whatever. Joel Alberto said, that looks tasty, Andy. Thank you. Travel with John said, 太好了. Thank you. It is really good. You can try it yourself. Basically, it's pretty simple. You just fry up some garlic and onion with some oil first up. Then slowly add the mushrooms, add some water, let it sort of simmer and simmer and simmer. Then slowly add some flour, or whatever. Corn flour is better because it won't curl up. But yeah, looks healthy and delicious, says Kevin James. Thank you guys so much. Someone else had a beautiful sunset today in Shanghai. Unfortunately, the sunset is over, but here's that live view of Lujiazui, which is not coming up on the screen. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you see it, Alex?
Nope, not yet. I just see our background up there. But yeah, the sun is down now at this point, but I didn't catch the sunset today. I don't know if I was busy getting ready for the show or if I was cooking or what I was doing, but I didn't pay attention to the sunset today, so sorry to have missed it, I guess.
Just thoughts about it. No, it did look nice. But that view looks a lot better than last night, if you guys will remember. It was very rainy and misty yesterday on the show. So now it's very bright Friday evening here in Shanghai, China. So it looks awesome. Okay, what I'm going to do now, though, is switch to a video. We have a new installment in Emma Leaning, our colleague Emma Leaning's Mental in Lockdown series. She says that living with someone in lockdown is difficult, no matter how much you love them. To be quite honest, it's probably not more difficult. I spoke with marriage family therapist Dr. John Miller about the pressure cooker conditions we're under and how couples across Shanghai can turn down the heat for a healthy relationship in lockdown. And then we'll come back and have a chat.
All right.
No matter how much you love someone, living with them under lockdown isn't easy. I spoke with family and marriage therapist Dr. John Miller about maintaining healthy relationships in challenging times.
Why do you think it's the people that we love the most that can anger us the most?
Love and conflict are inescapable, really, in real intimate relationships, because this is your most intimate other, and it's very sacred to you what they think and feel about you.
What do you think?
I'm not sure if our viewers can hear me right now. It looks like they're
asking for something you don't want to do. Criticism.
Sorry, you guys. I'm gonna.
By not saying,
can you hear me now, Alex?
I can. Maybe we might want to run it back to the beginning or at the start of the interview. I caught Emma's introduction, but I really wasn't able to catch what the doctor here was talking about. So maybe back to the beginning of where he started, where Emma started the interview. Then we can go from there.
Sweet, let's go. Sorry, you guys, connection problems. Here we go.
That can anger us the most.
Love and conflict are inescapable, really, in real intimate relationships, because this is your most intimate other. And it's very sacred to you what they think and feel about you.
What do you think, people across the community who are kind of locked down together might be experiencing?
Contempt, criticism, stonewalling, and defensiveness. Defensiveness is sort of your response when your partner is asking for something you don't want to do. Criticism is a way to get it by not saying, I want this, but by saying, you never do that. Stonewalling is that thing where when your partner comes to you with an emotional response or request for something, your first response is not to go, oh, I'm going to listen, but to go, no, like talk to the hand, sort of a kind of a hard emotional surface. And the last one's contempt, which is that's the really the most serious one that we look at about fighting, which is contempt is a situation where you say, not only did I not like what you just did, but now I don't like who you are as a person.
So what advice do you have, or what tips do you have for managing or creating healthy relationships in lockdown?
We call it a negotiated timeout, which is where you go to your own corner for 30 minutes. The negotiation bit is that you decide on how long it's going to be. And you come back together again, see if everybody's calmed down, try to resolve it. If you can't, go back to your corners
For 30
again.
minutes,
Try to do as much as you can in terms of controlling what is controllable. And stick to a kind of schedule and a sort of a delegation of chores and who's going to do what, when, and how. And biggest bit of advice, which may be a letdown for some people, is lower your expectations. Nobody's perfectly matched. And so there's a little bit of arguing that has to happen.
Is there anything else that you want to add?
And this experience of lockdown is a crucible experience generally for couples. The crucible is a metaphor, is that container by which, of stone or the iron forge that can contain the molten steel and forge it into something stronger than it was originally. Experiences of hardship between couples are crucible experiences where if they live through it, at the end of it, this hot cauldron of pain and time and intensity, and they come out the other end without it burning them up completely, then they're often stronger.
Thank you so much for today. It's been such a joy.
No problem, Emma. Thanks for doing it.
You take care.
You too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So there we go, Alex. You're at home with somebody, your significant other. What are you going through?
Well, it's been all right, ups and downs. I wouldn't say. We're obviously spending more time together than we normally do. She works, Monday to Friday as well as obviously I do, and so we obviously been spending a lot more time together. We've had a few little run-ins, as number 2 says, couples argue, and that's okay. And I think she and I are sort of, we acknowledge that, and you know what I mean, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say we're doing okay, not without any bumps in the road, but I think we're doing okay. I think all of that advice was really good advice. I think it's important that people make sure to understand that couples do argue, and no one can expect everything to be perfect. Life is not a fairy tale. And it can't be like it is in the most romantic of movies. Things happen in real life. Life is messier than that. And I think it's important that everyone understand that.
Yeah, I think that is so important. I think a lot of people have these really, really high expectations. Like you said, a lot of people in relationships expect it to be just like a movie. And it's really, really difficult, man. It's tough. And if you have expectations that are that high, you're only going to be disappointed. So not only that, it might disappoint you, but also lead to the end of a relationship where if you lowered your expectations to a more realistic level, you might find that actually, things are fine. People just want what they see in the movies, which is totally wrong.
Well, it's also unfair on your partner if you expect your life with that person to be like that, to be like written in a movie script, because you're just putting an unfair amount of not just pressure, but also your criticism and other things like that onto your partner, and it's unfair to that person as well. And so I think it's important that we all just sort of take a deep breath and kind of understand that, this is not going to be easy if you're locked down with your significant other for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time, obviously there's a lot of potential for disagreement there. And for a lot of couples, they're just not on. It sounds strange to say, but they're not used to spending that much time together. Normally they might be together half the time or a third of the time,
Right.
but not 100% of the time. And so, yeah, I think it's that can cause problems, and I think it's important to have strategies to deal with that to sort of keep it in check.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to keep in mind, that you can become, like Emma was saying, you can become really, really frustrated and really angry with somebody you really love, because, as they always say, it sounds like a cliche, but love and hate are just so close to each other. So yeah, it's important to, I think that a lot of that still comes from high expectations. People have these really high expectations of how their loved one should be. I don't know. It can become even more heightened and even more stressful during lockdown. Obviously, you're shoved together.
Yeah.
And Alex, you said before you both work full time, so
Right.
normally you probably wouldn't see each other, during the day anyway. But now you're together 24/7. Like, I couldn't imagine that.
It's a stress test, that's for sure. And like I said, we haven't been argument free. We've had a couple shouting matches here and there. It's calmed down and it's fine. We're doing okay. I think it's important. I think sharing the responsibility of the house. I mean, normally we do have an IE that will come and twice a week and help clean
Cool.
things up. So you're not home a lot, but obviously she's not coming over now, and so we've got a lot more sort of household chores. And household chores are sort of a mundane, silly thing to fight about. But I think couples, a lot of people in long-term relationships understand that it's something that people fight about. If you live together with your significant other, then a lot of times you're fighting about silly, petty things that look like that in the aftermath of the argument, you might say, well, that was a silly thing to fight about. Well, it just seems to happen like that sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I think another thing that is important to do with relationships and arguing is, I really think from my experience that arguing is super important because it shows some kind of passion.
Right.
If you were with somebody that just agrees with everything, or you agree with them all the time, and it's just like, oh yeah, nice, and you don't ever argue, like, I for one feel like that kind of relationship, well, I wouldn't even end up in a relationship with someone like that because it's just boring. Like, I think you still need some arguments, some passion, disagreements. I don't agree at all with the idea that you should find someone who's into the same stuff as you. I find that absolutely boring. If you're both into the same things, both have the same friends, there's just no passion there. So I think, try in this lockdown period, try to keep the the tension to a minimum, because you can't escape each other. Although you can do what the doctor mentioned there and have some negotiated time out. But on the other hand, it is important to remember that arguing with each other means there's some kind of passion there. I don't know if you agree, Alex.
I think it's meant. I think if we look at couples arguing, that's okay. Arguing is to be expected. I think the important thing is to take a time out and don't let things get to be too toxic. Right? Like he was talking about contempt, and I think some people, some people have a tendency when they get upset during an argument to say things that express contempt that they may not actually have, or that they may not really mean. But sometimes it's easy to say stuff, but it's harder to sort of wipe it away after you've already said it. And so walk it back, right? And so I think it's important that take a time out. Of course, normally I might go, if this happened to me, I might go downstairs for a walk, or I might go outside to meet a friend for a drink or something like that. Obviously, we can't do that now. So the best I can do is come over here and sit on the sofa, right? But that's better than nothing. It's better than sitting there and letting things sort of get too heated. So,
yeah, no, I do think, because I was thinking about it before, it must be really tough being stuck with someone, but it could also be kind of a cool thing, because it could help you realize that you're meant to be together. I don't know, if you find after the end of it you're still together, then it's a good sign. You went through a really hard thing together.
Yep. I think it's been an interesting experience for me. Obviously, I've been in lots of different relationships in my life, but I think this is the first time that I've ever had to go through anything like this. I think it's probably true for everyone. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but I think we're doing fine. Yeah,
no, for me as well. Like, I've been through quite a few long-term relationships, but I've never lived with somebody before. So I really don't know how I'd cope with it, because I really like my space too much. So I don't know, terrifying stuff. But I'm just happy that it's not happening with me. But, as I said just before, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You can go through something together and it can make you stronger. So that's awesome as well. But also in Shanghai, I don't know about your place, Alex, but I think in Shanghai, a lot of us have quite small apartments. My place is 45 square meters. So it could be challenging, I think, in this kind of situation.
Yeah, mine's a little bit bigger than that because there's two of us here, but not too much. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, most apartments, especially located in central areas of the city, are small. There's 26 million people in the city. Obviously, not everyone can have as much space as you might have, at least in the in the town that I came from. That was 26,000, not 26 million. So obviously, a totally different situation.
Exactly, it's a huge difference. We were speaking about numbers before with that black hole. I mean, the numbers between like my hometown, Wellington, the capital of New Zealand, 350,000 people, and that Shanghai is like 25.6 million. It's like it's just completely different. Hey, Stephen Riley said, "How are your cats coping, Andy, having you there 24 hours?" I think they're doing fine. The cool thing about cats is they're a lot like me. Introverted, they can stick to themselves a lot of the time, although they are both here, like in the video I showed the other day. They like to sit with me wherever I go, but they don't annoy me, so that's really cool. Kevin James Ing says communication is best. It's totally true. Communication is super important, and like the doctor said before, it's really critical, and so that you won't end up. What was the word he said at the end? For not hating each other, despising, contempt. You have to communicate. You have to set boundaries. Set rules together, and those rules need to be renegotiated, obviously, on an ongoing basis. Like he said with the timeout, it's something you can negotiate together, and negotiation goes for everything in a relationship. So yeah, communication is absolutely the key. What I'm going to do now, I think we've talked enough about relationships. Oh, somebody said Andy's a South Islander. No, I'm a North Islander. New Zealand's capital is the south of the North Island, but I was born in the South Island. So actually, you could say I'm a South Islander, but I grew up in Wellington. So as Bud said, North Island. But yeah, what I'm going to do now, Alex, is play a trailer. We haven't done this before, but our producer has filed a trailer for an upcoming interview with some truck drivers, because at the moment, truck drivers are stuck on the outskirts of Shanghai because obviously delivery is all up the beep. So things aren't happening, things aren't moving. So they're having to invent new ways to get by. So let's check out that trailer. That is for a new interview video that's coming up that was made by our colleagues Jack, Daisy, and Anna, which sounds awesome. Let's check it out. Looks awesome. I'm looking forward to that. that is from our colleagues Jack, Daisy, and Anna, like I said before. Definitely not something we often think about, Alex, the plight of people who are kind of stuck in limbo. I mean, we're stuck at home, but these guys are kind of stuck out there, if you know what I mean.
No, there's a lot of collateral damage that has been assessed because of this entire situation. And there's some things that are obvious, you know, and that you might think about, you know, quickly. And then there are some things that, you know, might not come to mind. You might not think about different situations that are taking place with people that are in limbo, that are stuck somewhere. And, you know, I mean, we'll see. When I don't want to comment. Obviously, we haven't watched the video yet. And so we haven't shown the video yet. So I'm not going to comment on its contents or anything like that. And we'll do that after we actually play it, which will be, I don't know, tomorrow, another day soon. We're going to play this video. But
yeah, we don't have a date yet, but hopefully soon. It looks interesting. Thanks for filing that, you guys. And obviously, like we mentioned before, a lot of our colleagues are still out and about getting stories put together for this show and for Shanghai Daily. So hats off to them. Does sound like an interesting job. We have a question here from Jack Lightfoot, and he's made a donation, which is awesome. But unfortunately, I don't have the answer. How long is average China passport renewal taking at the moment? I don't know. Do you know, Alex?
I don't know. I haven't spoken with anyone who has attempted to do that. That's an interesting question. I'd also like to know. I don't. Also, I'm a little bit unclear. Does he mean passport renewal for
Chinese
or for Chinese? But yeah, do you mean Chinese passports or do you mean passports for foreign nationals? Because I think the answer would be different for those two. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his name, Jack Lightfoot, maybe he means China passport renewal taking. No, I mean, I guess he means China. Oh, he said yes, but
yeah. Do you mean passport renewal for people from other countries that are in China, or passport renewal for Chinese people in China? So that's the question. I don't have the answer for either one, actually. But,
no, but I can ask.
We can
find
out, or we can get some more information at least.
Our colleague Minji is watching right now. Minji, if you can hear, can you? I don't know if you can find out really quickly how long the average China passport renewal process is taking right now under lockdown for Chinese passports, he says. And hopefully, let's see if Minji can get us an answer before the show's over. But I just want to quickly check some comments on our WeChat group. Okay. Roger says, my neighbor has a lot of loud beep. And somebody said, disgusting. Okay. It sounds like they're getting along pretty well. Yeah. Any more comments there?
I'll just let that go off and leave. All right. Pretty funny, though. All right. Yeah. I don't know. Good show today. Looking forward to seeing that video about the truck drivers. I did see a comment saying the poor truck drivers, no matter what country, always get the short end. I think that's pretty accurate, man. I think that's pretty true. You know, they are a group of people. Yeah, there you go. They're a group of people who really does a lot of hard, important work in terms of logistics of an entire society, and it's a pretty thankless job, I think. And so, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is a thankless job. Career guys, food. The public anger when things go wrong. Oh, we're back. Are we back?
We're back.
Sorry about that, you guys. Internet connection problems. Andrea Matthews has put a comment here. Visa office is closed. Recorded message. Have to wait for them to open to renew any residence visas for foreigners here. That's the case for foreigners. But I think and thank you for that, Andrea. I think Jack wants to know about Chinese passports. But again, that's probably the same situation, I guess.
Right. Well, obviously, getting a renewal of your passport, you would go to your own country's embassy or consulate for that. Whereas getting a renewal on your visa, you need to go to the Entry-Exit Bureau of China. I do. Yeah, that building is not in operation right now. But no one is being sent out of the country because their visas expired during a citywide lockdown when they literally can't go to the visa office no matter how much they might want to. So yeah, they're not kicking out people people from other countries whose visa has run out during the lockdown. But if you're in that situation, what you just need to do is keep your eyes open. Check out shine.cn, see if there are any updates about that. And then also, just be prepared, have all your documents ready so that you can, at the first possible opportunity, go there and get that done. Because I think that the authorities will be obviously lenient toward any situation of visa expiry during the lockdown. But if you wait after you can go and you don't go, then that might create an issue, obviously. So yeah, make sure you got all your documents ready.
Yeah, it's very important. Obviously, you want to have the documents ready. Hey, our colleague Minji just replied with an answer. She says, you need to make a reservation, and only for necessary purposes. You can call the hotline on 12367. That is 12367, and find out about renewing Chinese passports. Now, I do want to mention there was some misinformation being spread yesterday that Chinese nationals would not have their passports or visas renewed for travel presently in the current situation. And actually, the immigration authority announced today that that is misinformation, and they will be issuing updated passports or visas as necessary. But they do still recommend that if it's not absolutely necessary, to try and refrain from international travel at this time. So that is good to know. Anyway, Alex, I think that's about all we have for today. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Not that I can think of. Everyone stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. That's all I got.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see you again, same place, same time, 7:30 p.m. Beijing time, which is also Shanghai time. We just have one time zone, and we'll bring you the latest news and information. Until then, take care.
Bye.